Hey everybody, time for another object preview for our next exhibit coming up called Waves of Intelligence, all about the battle for the Atlantic in World War II. And what we have today is a pair of binoculars that came off the German U-boat U.505. Now, if any of you have been to Chicago to the Museum of Science and Industry, you might have seen U.505 because it's on display there. On June 4th, 1944, the U.S. Navy captured an enemy warship for the first time since the War of 1812. And that ship was the U.505. All of that happened thanks to a pretty lengthy intelligence gathering operation that was made possible by the bomb machines decrypting Enigma messages, which we talked a little bit about in our last couple of videos. But in the late spring, early summer of 1944, the U.S. Navy put together a task force that was based and was formed to try and specifically go out and capture a German U-boat. They had gotten information that U-boats were operating in the vicinity of Cape Verde. And they formed a task force centered on a small escort carrier, USS Guadalcanal, with a handful of destroyers and destroyer escorts. And working on information they had that there should be U-boats in the area, they were able to find and locate the U.505. And even just finding it, of course, wasn't enough. They still had to somehow capture it intact. German U-boat crews were pretty well trained on if they were forced to surface in an emergency, if they had to abandon ship. They were supposed to open valves, try to scuttle the U-boat so that their captors couldn't get anything out of that U-boat that might be useful to them. In this case, the German U-boat crew got off their boat so fast that they didn't quite do that scuttling, all those jobs that they should have done. So they tried to open some of those valves, get water flowing in, but it wasn't quite enough. And a Navy boarding party was able to get on board and actually collect a treasure trove of intelligence information, including code books and, really importantly, a pair of new acoustic homing torpedoes that the German Navy had developed that would have made quite a big difference to them in helping them U-boats gain the edge over surface ships that they had lost in years past. So that was a pretty critical intelligence windfall they got. But this pair of binoculars actually came off of U-505 as well. It was taken by the captain of one of those destroyer escorts, USS Chatelaine, an officer named Dudley Sergeant Knox, and he was able to get these pair of binoculars intact off the U-boat. If you take a look at some of the markings on here, you'll see that this pair of binoculars was made by a company named Carl Zeiss, located in Jena, the town of Jena. His marking is on here. You'll see that there's a German, the Nazi eagle that is inscribed on just about every piece of German military equipment. There's an identification number, it's sort of like a serial number that the Zeiss company would add so that they could identify which particular pair this was. And over on this side is where the German Navy, the Kriegsmarine, would add their own identification number to it. So you've got a big N here and then their own sort of internal serial number. So this pair of binoculars seems to have survived pretty well. We're pretty lucky to have them in this good shape. And this is part of a real piece of U-boat equipment that managed to survive and is here to this day. So you'll be able to see this on display if you make it to our exhibit.